That's who I am. Why, where you end up doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter because we hear all the time about this idea of, oh yeah, the journey is the goal, or it's not about where you end up, it's how you go about it. The real meaning of these sayings is, if you're so lost in the moment and so enjoying it and just not second guessing and just diving in, each moment, each day, you're being yourself. You're not thinking about being yourself. As soon as I start second guessing it, I'm getting in my own way, like I talked about yesterday. Yeah, and as soon as I'm thinking about it in any shape, any way, shape, or form, for the most part, going, is this right? I'm obstructing just being engaged with right now. And so if I can get so lost in just, oh, I am, everything's taken care of. Whew. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do this. So enmeshed and flowing in my life, enjoying, lost in it, in a positive, the most positive sense you can imagine, actually. Wherever I end up is going to be fine. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just going. I just have that momentum. So this is a new way that I'm wanting to talk about this because I've been thinking about, how do I really have you get it? You're on the other side of a screen. I'm talking into a camera alone in my room. Other people will see this. There can be a malaise, a zoning out that causes you to not get it, right? So how can I get through to you? You can really just be having a freaking blast. Think about all the characters we love. Characters like Matthew McConaughey in Wolf of Wall Street, that actually, despite playing a very, unethical character, he's like on screen for like technically 2 scenes, but really like 1 6-minute scene where he's talking with DiCaprio's character. Captivates you, right? Why? Because he was having a blast. He improvised that entire scene. Didn't tell DiCaprio. And so if you rewatch, so by the way, feel free to pause this, go watch Wolf of Wall Street, Matthew McConaughey scene. Google that, it's the first thing that comes up. Watch that. The whole time Leonardo is looking off to the side because he's looking at Martin Scorsese going, what the hell is going on? Because none of it was planned, right? Yet it is the most memorable moment in the movie. McConaughey, despite only being in barely 2 scenes, really just 1, is the most memorable character, the one that he plays. Why? Because he's just so in it. He's not even thinking about whether what he says makes sense. He's just engaged. And even in his book, Green Lights, which I highly recommend, he says, be less impressed and more involved, right? He cares about just throwing yourself in the deep end. You can even look up one of his first movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 6, I think it was. It was a god-awful performance. It's terrible. I'm not even a horror fan. I mean, if you're a fan of comedy, you should go watch it. It is a really, really funny, bad performance. But it's amazing to watch even then. It's amazing entertainment because he throws himself in the deep end, right? And he just does stuff. And he talks about in his book, Green Lights, about, getting in his head. He did get it in his head at one point. He had some initial success in his first movies. But when he went to Hollywood and he started getting his logical mind involved, he started thinking about how he was going to get the roles. And luckily, his first agent, before he ever let him audition, he said, dude, you are way too needy. And so he sent him to Europe and had a buddy with some motorcycles and had him ride motorcycles through Europe with some of his co-stars from Dazed and Confused, which was his first movie, which was a huge success. Still an amazing movie to this day. But he sent him out and just had him have a blast and do what? Just stop thinking about shit and just get involved. Get involved in life. And when he came back to LA, his agent was just silently kind of watching him for a few days while they were hanging out, because McConaughey was so broke he had to have him stay at the agent's house. And his manager, whatever you call him. And finally his manager looks at him and goes, okay, you're ready, after a few days of just silently observing him. Just kind of saw that he was involved in the moment. And he said, yeah, go audition for this role and go ahead and tell them you want to be a director too. So it seems like you give even less of a shit. That's what he's told him to do. That's a true story that he tells in his book. But what is he doing? He's just involved with his life. And so can you just view each moment as jumping into icy cold water, jumping into a cold plunge? And the more you do it, the less you think, the less you're in your own way. The more you do, the less you think, the less your own way. The more you do, the less you think, the less in your own way. I just am, I do, I just am, I do, I just am, I do. Doing whatever's calling to me. I just am, I do, I just am, I do, I just am, I do. Can I get in that rhythm? Because if I can get in that rhythm, good things will happen. But you won't care. You're gonna be so involved. When you're floating down the river, it's a blast. So why it doesn't matter where you end up is this. This is what we're talking about. This is what makes someone have that, oh, he's just so cool. Like a McConaughey or a Brad Pitt or these, I'm sure there's, I'm a guy, so I look up to the male actors, right? The Indiana Joneses, the Han Solos. They're just involved. And they're not, Han Solo's a screw up. He's always messing up, but he's just cool about it. Cause why? Cause he's just involved. He's just not thinking, he's just doing, I gotta go here, I gotta go here, I gotta go here. And there's this aloofness and this looseness that allows them to kind of skate through reality. We see that, I did a video on Krishna that I recommend you watching, where I talk about, this figure from these Hindu epics that dances on the head of snakes and is playful in the face of even serious circumstances. Why? Because he's involved. He's not thinking. He's not going, oh, this bad thing's happening. What if I'm afraid? No, he gets in there. And he's such a master of just being, just I am and I am, I do. I am and doing, and I am and doing, and I am and doing, that he just has that momentum. He can steamroll through everything like floating on a cloud, right? The greatest characters in all of the greatest movies have this. They can be comical, light, funny, loose, intense situations, right? And it goes back to these epics even from 5,000 years ago, like the Mahabharata with Krishna. So it doesn't matter what story it is, if it's Star Wars, if it's Indiana Jones, if it's whatever. None of those characters, you never doubt that those characters are going to have a happy ending. We just know this. And when they don't, people object. I think not just because we want to be comforted, but because we know that that's deep down where these people are going to inevitably end up. These cool cats, these Han Solos, always do. They always have a happy ending, even if they don't deserve it, right? They don't even need to be particularly ethical people, but they got that it factor. They're engaged. They're not second guessing. So anyway, guys, this is why it doesn't matter where you end up. I'm Ian McMinn, Path to I Am. I'm a master certified NLP coach. It's essentially, I have a master certification for releasing limiting beliefs, negative beliefs. I have lots of people work with me that want to really kind of get the juju. So feel free to check me out in the description, but I enjoyed this today, and we will talk again soon.